You can buy a bag of diamond dust on Amazon for about $15. It sits in a small plastic pouch, yellowish, fine as flour, and completely unremarkable. It looks like something you would use to polish a kitchen counter. That same material is the starting point for industrial diamonds strong enough to survive conditions that would destroy almost anything else. Extreme heat, constant abrasion, pressures and loads that grind conventional materials down to nothing. The gap between a bag of powder on your doorstep and a tooth on an oil rig drill is one of the stranger manufacturing journeys you can witness. And the most revealing part of that journey is not the machine that performs it, but what it shows you about what a diamond actually is once you understand how it gets made. Let's get into it right here on Small Things. Carbon locked into place. A diamond is not defined by where it came from. It is defined by what it is. Pure carbon arranged in a three-dimensional lattice so tight and rigid that almost nothing can break it apart or scratch through it. Every carbon atom in a diamond bonds to 4 neighbors, and those 4 to 4 more, forming a network that extends in every direction without a single weak point. That structure is why diamond sits at the top of the hardness scale, and why it survives pressures and temperatures that destroy almost everything else. Graphite is also pure carbon, but its atoms bond in flat sheets that slide against each other easily, which is why graphite is soft enough to write with. Same element, completely different arrangement, completely different material. The problem that built the machine. For most of human history, the only diamonds available came from deep underground, carried to the surface by ancient volcanic eruptions, and then found, mined, and cut over centuries of painstaking work. Natural diamond was rare, expensive, and beautiful, and the only use most people imagined for it was jewelry, or occasionally as a cutting tool for craftsmen who could afford to treat a gemstone as a workshop consumable. The Industrial Revolution changed the question. Machines needed to cut, grind, and drill through materials harder than steel: ceramics, rock, hardened alloys, reinforced concrete. The hardest cutting material available was still diamond, but natural diamond was too rare and too costly to use on the business end of a drill bit and simply throw away. The problem was not finding a material as hard as diamond. There was nothing as hard as diamond. The problem was producing it in quantities large enough and at a cost low enough that engineers could actually attach pieces to a drill bit, grind them against ceramite, and replace them when they wore down, without treating each fragment like something that belonged in a vault. A mine could only produce so many diamonds. A drilling rig could destroy that many in a single shift. Engineers and materials scientists understood what diamond was structurally. They knew that carbon, under enough pressure and heat, would arrange itself into that same rigid lattice the Earth produced over geological time. The challenge was not chemical, it was mechanical. Build a machine capable of generating the pressure and temperature at which the structure forms, hold those conditions stable for long enough for the transformation to complete, and do it safely enough that a factory could run it in production. The forces involved push every containing material close to its own limits, which is why each press sits in its own blast room behind its own blast door, in case the machine decides that today is the day it will not hold together. By the middle of the 20th century, that press existed. It did not look romantic. It looked like a squat, heavily armored hydraulic machine surrounded by safety engineering designed to survive its own failure. The materials it used were unglamorous. The process was high-voltage electricity, extreme pressure, and very precise timing. None of it sounded like diamond making until you understood what diamond actually is. Dust salt, and 6 sides of pressure. The starting material is a small amount of diamond polishing powder, the same kind found in grinding wheels and ceramic saw blades. Loose, fine, yellow, and worth almost nothing in that form. It goes into a metal cup the size of a thimble. Why powder rather than a solid chunk? Because loose grains compact under pressure in a way a solid piece cannot. The gaps allow the material to rearrange as force is applied from every direction, eventually fusing into one solid mass. A piece of cobalt-cemented tungsten carbide goes in alongside the powder as a base. Under the heat the press will generate, the cobalt liquefies and migrates into the diamond powder, acting as a catalyst that helps the individual grains fuse and crystallize into one unified mass. As a side effect, it turns the material from yellow to pitch black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. The filled thimble sits inside a cylinder of salt, centering the mold and providing compressible support as the press closes in. That cylinder sits inside a block of talc, which acts as a gasket, conforming to the press rather than cracking against it. Both materials are chosen for what they are not hard enough to interfere with the forming diamond, not toxic, not difficult to clean. All of this enters a press that pushes from 6 sides simultaneously, focusing over 1,000,000 psi from every direction at once, while electricity heats the interior to around 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature and pressure, the bonding process runs its course, and in roughly 10 minutes, what was loose powder has become one solid piece of material. The mold materials dissolve away or blast off. What remains is a black disc bonded to its tungsten carbide base, unfazed by anything except another diamond. There is one more thing the 10 minutes produces. Because the powder grains fused with their crystal structures pointing in random directions, the finished diamond is not a single crystal. It is a mass of interlocked grains, each bracing the next from a different angle, and that random interlocking actually makes it harder to crack than a natural single crystal gemstone diamond. Synthetic does not mean fake. Most people hearing the word synthetic in front of diamond assume they are about to be told something polite about an inferior copy, a simulation that resembles the real thing without quite being it. That assumption is wrong. The carbon structure in an industrial synthetic diamond is chemically and structurally identical to the carbon structure in a natural diamond. The atoms are arranged the same way, locked into the same lattice, and measured against the same hardness scale at exactly the same level. There is no laboratory test that distinguishes synthetic from natural diamond based on the carbon structure alone, because structurally they are the same material. What is genuinely different is the grain structure, the color, and the purpose. A natural gemstone is a single large crystal, clear, shaped to bend light in a way the eye finds beautiful. An industrial synthetic diamond is polycrystalline, meaning its grains are fused rather than grown as one continuous crystal, which is why it is black rather than clear. It is also stronger against cracking than the single crystal gemstone version, because a crack trying to run through a polycrystalline diamond hits grain boundaries pointing in random directions and cannot propagate cleanly in any one line. The drill tooth and the wedding ring gem are not different materials. They are the same material made for entirely different ends, the same way a rough structural timber and a finished floor plank are both still wood, and calling one synthetic does not make it less wood. Where diamond is actually working right now. On an oil platform somewhere right now, a drill bit is pushing through rock at depth, and the cutting teeth on that bit are industrial diamond. The rock does not scratch them. Everything a drill encounters underground, sandstone, shale, granite, is softer than what is biting into it. The bit keeps cutting long past the point where a conventional carbide or steel tooth would have rounded off and lost its edge entirely, quietly working through material that would destroy almost anything else. In Igiugig, Alaska, an underwater generator called RivGen is producing electricity in a river right now using diamond-on-diamond bearings. No grease, no maintenance crew can reach the submerged components anyway. The bearings are made from a material that does not wear against itself in any meaningful way, so they simply keep running through cold water under constant load without intervention in conditions where a conventional bearing would have failed within months. In workshops around the world, 3D printers are running abrasive materials through diamond-tipped nozzles. Carbon fiber filament and glass-filled plastics gradually sand away a standard brass nozzle from the inside out, usually within a few hours of printing at volume. A solid diamond nozzle running the same material shows no measurable wear because the filament passing through it never encounters anything it can actually scratch. The nozzle simply outlasts the comparison. In each of these places, the diamond is not there to be admired. It is there because every alternative wears out. The same carbon, a different arrangement. Go back to that bag of dust on the doorstep. Nothing about it suggests what it can become. It is not rare or deep underground. It did not take 1 billion years to form. It is $15 on the internet. What diamond actually is has not changed. What has changed is who gets to decide when and where it forms. For most of human history, that was entirely up to the Earth. Heat, pressure, geological time, and chance. What humans found was what the Earth had made, and nothing more. Now there is a press in a blast room that can settle that question in 10 minutes. What comes out is something no rock on the planet can scratch. If this changed the way you think about what a diamond actually is, let us know in the comments what you want us to explore next. We might make it our next episode. Thanks for watching. History often hides in the smallest details.